lobbying federal agencies under the Trump administration. You might have heard the Department of Interior Secretary Zinke was out there. They sent a letter to the water board saying what you're doing is illegal. So there's going to be a whole battle between state rights and federal rights. And so the grand old party of state rights is like, no, your state rights don't count. So that's 21st and 22nd. I'm going to send this around. If anyone wants to be on my email list, encourage you to fill that out and we'll keep you posted on things. A couple other things that are happening. The San Francisco PUC in 2 years has had one public hearing on the Bay Delta plan. And that was in January of 2017. And Marty was there, bless his soul. And we actually turned out 47 or 44 people and had 37 people speak, and they're like, whoa, And we've been trying to get them to have a public meeting, because we come during public comment, we present our analysis, and the board's kind of like, well, staff says this, and we say that. But they're going to have a meeting on the 28th, August 28th, so we're going to try to get people to San Francisco for that, and we're going to try to get supervisors to come and people who need persuade. And it's like, you need to see us have a conversation. And it's not a he said, she said. Someone's telling the truth and someone isn't. And we need you to be there to witness it. So that's a lot coming up in August. And that's it for my presentation. I appreciate your patience, and I hope it wasn't too much information. But we're trying to build a strong case for good thinking people to be on our side. Charles, you had a question?
So going back to the SFPUC alternatives proposals. And I saw this, I believe, in the press release from Felicia Marcus when this came out. At the very end of that, she talked about why they could offer it, but they couldn't mandate those kind of alternatives. It's because the water board only has authority to require this in-stream flow. So they can't require anybody to do gravel augmentation, predatory suppression. But they can offer that if you do these, I think that's a really strong leg that the water board can stand on. And it's great that you want to do all these terms. Like you said, go prove it and you'll get the benefit. But we can't require anybody to do it, so we can't put it in our plan. The only thing we can do is the SIP flow. And I think that's, you're the policy director, and that's the best defense I see for the water board against all of these arguments from all these entities about these alternatives. They can't mandate any of those alternatives at all.
Yeah. Well, Charles, I'm impressed that you picked up on that, and that is a critical point that the state water board says, when they're criticized for, it's like, well, why don't you, allow or put more requirements on non-flow measures? And their policy is like, look, we're about water quality, we're about flows, and we want to incentivize things that work. And that's why we're doing this 30 to 50% range. And we're encouraging voluntary agreements. And we've had a lot of meetings, conservation groups, federal and state agencies, and water agencies trying to figure out, it's like, is there some sweet spot where we're not all happy, but we can live with it? And it's like, they started here, we started here, state water board started right in the middle, and no one's budged. And so now, they say, it's like, gosh, we submitted all these comments and they ignored them. It's like, they didn't ignore them. They know their science is much better. The irrigation districts, they spent $25 million on studies. Well, there are peer-reviewed studies that say the opposite of what those studies say. So it's like, yeah, you hire someone, you say, here's the outcome we want, get there, apply some science. So, they come up with, well, juvenile fish are kind of weak swimmers, and if there's too much water flowing, then they'll get flushed out earlier on. It's like, well, if they have floodplains and refuge, that won't be a problem. Or if they have logs and things in the river, that won't be a problem. So, but you're absolutely right, Charles, and that is something we should probably focus on a little bit more. Yeah.
So there's a lot of data, and I'm still confused. So, there's a water quality board, there is a SFPUC. We keep referring to we doing this. Is that the trust or what?
I'm sorry about that. When I refer to we, I'm referring to those of us who get water from the Tuolumne River.
I see.
So sometimes I identify myself with the SFPUC in Boston, even though there are opponents, but like we being the Bay Area people who take water from the 12. Yeah, so I think that's a good suggestion to be clear.
Yeah, also, two questions. Number one, can you summarize the story of what you presented? Because there's a lot of data and my mind just didn't grasp all that. Maybe some of the people who have experienced data. And how does tunnel affect this plan, or does it?
Okay, so the elevator pitch is that the environmental benefits of this plan are great and the potential economic impacts are minuscule. So we shouldn't be so worried about it. We should embrace this. This is great for the Bay Area.
Why?
Why what?
Why? Because there's no water being shifted to Southern California, right?
No, that's not tunnels.
Oh,
That's the
he's
Bay
talking
Area.
about something else.
Oh, okay.
He's talking about the plan.
Okay. So the connection between the Bay Delta plan and the water fix, the twin tunnels, there are a few connections. So one is that this plan was supposed to be completed prior to them changing the point of diversion on the Sacramento River. So basically, we need to know how much water is flowing from our rivers into the bay before they can say, okay, we're going to start a tunnel here. But Governor Brown, it's his pet project is the tunnels, and he overrode that. Okay. If this plan does supersede the tunnels, then it's going to say a certain amount of water has to reach the bay. And so they can't take out more water from the Sacramento River than would allow that on paper. But those things can change. And that's the big question about the twin tunnels. Can you count on legislation and policy to keep people from taking too much water? I mean, if on paper it says, you can only take so much water, but you have pipes that are oversized, because the idea is during the winter, when you have a lot of water coming, that's when you want to take it. So you need to have these huge tunnels so you can move it into storage other places. And then in the summertime, there's not less water available. So some people talk about a single tunnel, and the thing is, like, okay, you can take this much water, and this much water that you would have taken with two tunnels is going to be flowing down the river. And maybe, which is a fine thing, but when we balance human use and natural things, it would be better to take this much water during a really wet winter than during the summer or during not a wet winter. So something we're proposing for the Tuolumne is when you have a year like last year, when flows were 9,000 cubic feet per second for 5 or 6 months. It's like, would it have been that much worse if it were 8,000 CFS or 7 or 5? It's like, at a certain point, you get a little bit of added benefit, but not much. But you get a huge benefit when you're moving from 200 CFS to 500 or 200 to 1,000. So in really wet years, maybe that's a good time if we have a way to capture that water and put it into the aquifer so that it could be available to agriculture during an extended drought and can make them feel more comfortable giving up a little bit of water every year. That's a trade-off we'd be willing to make.
So I have two questions. When you said in the wet year 2007, 2016 was the wet
17.
year? 17. When you said all that water was dumped, where did it end up?
It didn't end up in the bay.
Oh, it did?
Yeah,
Okay.
not a bad thing.
Okay.
So basic dumped means they had to, release from the dam a lot of water.
Right.
Because they needed to keep having some storage so that if you have the big storm or you have a wet rain on the snowpack and a lot of water is coming down, you've got to be able to capture it. Otherwise, it's going to top over the dam and it's going to flood.
Okay, my
So
second
dumping
question-
means releasing it because
Right.
you have to, you're forced
My
to.
second question is, what is the position of this SFPUC water board, these 5 people?
That's different.
The state water board.
State water boards, in relation to Jerry Brown's twin tunnel.
So they also are overseeing that,
Okay,
and that's happening right now.
okay.
And they're totally overworked because they've got this and they've got that and they've got everything else. And, you know, I think there's probably some pressure on them to, since they're appointed by Governor Brown, to be flexible with that.
Well put.
I mean, are they working for the governor's plan to go through?
Yeah. So, I don't follow it as closely. I mean, I don't go to the hearings on water fix. There's the woman, Tam Doduk, is really, she worked for the state water board and she's really smart. And she is, she's chairing the water fix. And I've been hearing good things about her. Like, you know, she's not accepting BS from people. So, I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. And, you know, there was some news just today that Jerry Brown's trying to lock in something for 50 years. That
Next
like,
Was that
Tuesday.
the article?
Next
in
Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that.
And so it's like he sees that he's got, you know, 5 months left. And I can't imagine any candidate for governor saying, yeah, I'm for the water fix. They're gonna, you know, Gavin Newsom's gonna say, well, you know, a single tunnel. It's a compromise, you know. And the people who understand, it's like, well, you know, you kind of need 2 tunnels to serve that purpose because you need to get the water when it's available. Are going to say, it's like, well, that doesn't really work. And a lot of environmentalists are going to say, it's like, well, maybe some would say that's okay, and others would say, we don't like it anyway. So I don't really see it happening, but who knows? I didn't see Trump getting elected.
Neither did he, apparently.
Yeah. So but the bottom line on the tunnels is, the question for a lot of people is, can you count on policy to control how much water is being taken out, or do you need to depend on infrastructure, which is what we've been doing. And the infrastructure is getting old, and there are a lot of problems in the Delta, and if there's an earthquake, you know, the levees are going to collapse. And so people are thinking about other issues besides water supply and ecosystems, but also the integrity of that whole system and agricultural land in the Delta. By the way, farmers in the Delta are totally opposed to the twin tunnels, and they're supportive of the Bay Delta plan. So it's not farms versus fish, it's like environmentalists, commercial fishers, recreational fishers, some farmers against farmers who have had a sweet deal for a long, long time and don't want to change. Did everybody who wanted to sign up for my email list get a chance? What I'll do is I will send an email to everyone with a couple of, we've put some slideshows on YouTube. And so you can kind of go through and you can stop it and look at graphs and replay if you want, because this is a ton of information. And my apologies, I mean, you know, right now we're really trying to tailor our message to decision makers. And we're trying to get Bosca not to sue over the Bay Delta plan. We're trying to get the SFPUC not to sue. The idea is we want to make sure that the water agencies aren't all piling on against the state water board. And our best chance is urban water users, which from phase 1 is basically the SFPUC, because everyone else is agriculture. If we can break them from the irrigation districts, that helps out a little bit. And then they now aren't going to be putting money into litigation. They have a lot more money with the irrigation districts. And Bosca last year, Bosca basically, they just repeat everything the SFPUC says. And when we meet with them and we point stuff out, they're like, oh, no, no, no. And then later on they realize we were right, every single time. I mean, we know the issue much better than Bosca. So they totally count on the SFPUC, which has a lot of misleading information. So Bosca, they sent out a template letter to their 26 member agencies and said, here, fill in your agency and some specifics about why this is going to be harmful to you. But the language is all the same. The bullet points are the same. And so, you know, they just send it in. It's like, boss gases, send these in. This, the water district sent in a letter too. It's like, and I read it, it's like, this is not true. And I sent it to recently to the directors and some staff saying, you know, I understand you might be taking a position on this, and I'd love to have a chance to address you before you do, because you sent this letter and it's wrong. I didn't hear back, but at least, you know, give them a chance. And we have a lot of this stuff about the SFPUC is on a recent video we put out, so we can kind of share it with people. And a lot of times the feedback is like, wow, this is kind of complicated. But I think we're going to get Palo Alto, City of Palo Alto, to take a look at this on the 20th, on Monday, and either move to a neutral position or maybe even support the Bay Delta plan. So if we can pull away one BOSCA agency and maybe empower others to start thinking about it a little bit more, and then, you know, pull out the SFPUC, that's probably the best we can do at this point. Yes?
How much of the agriculture you're referring to is industrial agriculture that we're subsidizing?
I don't know, but what's happened is there are corporations that are investing in almonds and other things. There's one on Sand Hill Road, and I think it's called Trinitas. Basically, it's a venture capital firm, and they can make, I think it's $25,000 per acre growing almonds. And so what they've been doing is converting rangeland, where if you have a wet year, grass grows, and you graze cattle, to almond orchards. And you see these on your way to Yosemite. And so they're tapping groundwater. And it's not groundwater that recharges very quickly. So basically they figured it's like, okay, we've got 25 years worth of water. You know, after a few years, we're going to start producing nuts, and we're going to make this much money over the life of the water table, and then we're out. And that's our profit, and the water table's gone. But in lower areas, they're converting a lot of lower value seasonal crops to orchards. And we are, in Stanislaus County, we're subsidizing them with public trust water versus with money. In other areas where state or federal government invested in infrastructure, then taxpayers' money is subsidizing. But they and the SFPUC paid for their dam and infrastructure. So they really feel like it's their water, and they talk about this water grab. The state is doing this water grab. It's like, well, who grabbed the water in the first place? I mean, people use 80% of the river. That's the water grab. So, well, thank you all so much for sticking around.
Thank you.